Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show. I'm your host, Greg Bennett. And well, today I have a fantastic conversation with two good mates. We go for a walk down memory lane with Simon Whitfield, the Olympic champion from 2000 and the silver medalist from Beijing Olympic Games, and then Craig Alexander, three-time Kona Ironman world champion and two-time 70.3 world champion. All of us started at the same triathlon club back in the early 90s. We share a few stories from that time. Balmoral Triathlon Club was such a special place for all of us that I think it was great for us all just to self-reflect a little bit, the lessons we've learned since those early days until we are now. I guess that's 30 years ago, so there's plenty of learning. I hope you enjoy this one as much as we all did. For us, it was a great way to just catch up. We hope to do another one of these in person towards the end of the year, but for now, Craig was good enough to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning. His voice was a little croaky. He's been dealing with a bit of a flu, so it was great to have him jump in, even though he wasn't feeling 100%. A little bit of housekeeping before we go on. You can actually find Craig Alexander, or Crowy, as he's best known, on anyquestion.com. His username is Crowy Alexander. He's already answered a whole bunch of questions, but you can go in there and ask him any questions you like, and he'll get back to you on there. I did my best to throw questions at them today, but I'm sure you've got some follow-up ones after this episode. I just want to thank you so much for listening. It really means the world to me, and I do appreciate all and any feedback you guys give me. So please keep that coming. And I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. All right. Today, I'm joined by two of my favorite people on the planet, two of the greatest athletes in the world, and honestly, two of the best men I know. One of them dominated the world of 70.3 and Ironman with 3 Kona Ironman and 2 70.3 world titles, and arguably the greatest career in the middle distance triathlon that I think we've ever seen, with more wins, I'm pretty sure, at that distance than anyone else. I might be wrong, but anyway, we're going to run with it. And add to that his impressive short course wins at races like Minneapolis and Chicago and just so many more. And you'll get an understanding why I just hold him in such awe. Just absolutely incredible man. The other, well, he has probably the greatest Olympic career we've ever seen in our sport. Maybe all bar one, but we'll call it the best, with 4 Olympics and a gold medal at the very first Olympic triathlon and a silver medal 8 years later. Known for his powerful sprint, he also took the world's biggest prize money wins at the Hyvee World Cup and Lifetime Minneapolis. Personally, I watched from the very beginning as both of them started their careers as young men, and I've got to be honest, neither of them were remarkable at the start, but they chipped away to become the icons of the sport that we all love. I've spent hundreds, actually more like thousands of hours training with both of them. We've crashed and we've had podiums on the world stage, and we've shared the highs and lows of sport and life together. They've both been on the show separately, but this is the first for all of us to be together. So it's a huge honor and privilege. Thanks for joining me on the Greg Bennett Show. Craig Alexander and Simon Whitfield. How are you guys? Craig, you can just put your hand up because I know you've lost your voice.
It's good to have you. It's good to see you, fellas. This is great. Just looking forward to this.
Nice intro, Greg. Nice intro, mate. Thank you.
Guys, thanks for joining me. I really wanted to do this today because Balmoral Triathlon Club, where we all started out in the early 90s, they have their awards night coming up. And they've actually recognized me, of all people, so I thought we could all celebrate me on this show. I'm just kidding. But basically, I'm part of the BTC Youth Scholarship Award. They put my name on it, and I thought, you know what would be really fun is to get you two on, discuss our life and how we all kind of started our careers early on at Balmoral and went on to do big and better things. And I thought we could share some stories and kind of at the start here even just identify what we thought was unique about Balmoral Triathlon Club and why we thought it was awesome. But before we do that, I just want to say good day, and where are you both?
Well, I'm in Sydney, down in cold Sydney, middle of winter.
That'll do, mate. Don't talk anymore. Let's save it up. That's Craig. Everybody, his voice, he's going to run with us today, but his voice is not the best.
I've got my Demi Moore / Al Pacino voice on.
And Simon, where are you, mate?
I'm in Victoria. We haven't had summer start yet, but I'm out on the ocean every day, so it's all good here.
This is our third time we've tried to do this. So everybody listening, understand that we're running with it, even though Craig's lost his voice, because we've tried At 3, we just decided we're going to go with it. So last week, Simon, you lost your internet, and Craig, you lost your voice. Before that, I screwed up the times, and so we all turned up at different times. But finally, we're here, so we're going to run with it. All right. I always wanted to do this in person with you guys, and I think we can probably do something like this again towards the end of the year. But so, firstly, let's rewind the clock a little bit, which is my favorite thing to do in this show. But because of Balmoral Triathlon Club, I thought we could start there. And first and foremost, I think I met you both separately in 93. I think, Simon, you were early 93 and Craig maybe late 93. When did you guys first meet each other? Was it at Balmoral?
Yeah, it would be at the park, I guess.
I want to say it was at the Balmoral Tri Club presentation dinner in 93 or 94. 93 maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that would be
I remember going out to swim with you out in Ashfield.
Ashfield, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Remember, and coming from Balmoral out to Ashfield in 1993 was a little different.
You're on the wrong side of the tracks there, buddy.
But I was on the right side of the tracks to be there with you, because I remember just I don't know, something was different about it. It was just this, like, we connected there, and then the three of us went on this, whatever this mission was. But to bring it back to Balmoral, what a spot, you know.
We all got to have pretty successful and long careers. You know, we got a lot out of it. Do you think there was anything about the way we started, and was there a culture in the club or anything that you think allowed us to, I think all of us kind of blossomed later too, you know, but I think we, in our youth, in those early years, was there something about that allowed us to grow, to become better athletes later on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what I remember about Balmoral was it was always fun. They catered for everyone, but it was always inclusive. You were truly the only Balmoral boy. Simon and I were ring-ins, but they adopted us, took us in.
Right.
You know, I just remember it being a lot of fun, and they were always including us in everything. If they were going away on a trip and they'd spare rooms, they would invite us to come along. But it was also like a performance focus as well, because we had a couple of sessions a week that were really serious, with Rog Higley running, and also with Brian Drew on a Saturday morning. We had some really good bike run sessions in Centennial Park. So
that takes me back. Do you remember, actually, rest your voice for a second. You bring up Centennial Park with Brian Drew. Do you guys remember doing that team time trial together?
Oh, yeah.
When you crashed and brought us down.
Well, hang on. So this is how it went, folks, in my mind anyway. You guys are going to team time trial for 1 hour. Right, and so we were hooking it. I don't know, 60k an hour or something. Whatever we were doing was faster than what they do today. And I remember we were coming down this little slope, absolutely flying, and then our alarms went off right on the 1 hour. And Crowy, you were sitting at the front, and you just sat straight up. Okay, I'm done. And we went straight up the back of you. I remember sliding along the road. Like, seriously, we crashed so fast that I actually didn't break anything or hurt myself that much, because it was just like sliding on the asphalt.
I was always one for following instructions. When Brian said an hour, I stopped at an hour.
I don't remember the session, but I remember meeting up. Like, I remember where we met in North Sydney, and how we crossed the bridge, and how we ride through the downtown at whatever that was, like 5:30 in the morning. And I remember that bit of it, but the actual sessions, I can remember Centennial Park, the nuances of it, the little hill off the side, that black slope that you're talking about. I can remember some of the sessions, but it's funny. I remember as much just like cruising around Sydney, you know, downtown Sydney, like a bunch of kids on our bikes, just going riding bikes.
Well, you were a kid. I think you were 17 or 18. Like, you literally were still a kid.
I was, yeah. 18 years old, living in. And here you go, like, that Balmoral was this home away from home, because I was either at the boarding house where I was, you know, what are you doing? Why are you leaving the boarding house at 5:30 in the morning? What is this that you do? Or being at Balmoral, where I was just part of the culture of Balmoral. It was like, yeah, we'll meet down there. We're going to go ride downtown Sydney. Then we're going to go run around the headland. And then we're going to go back to the small woods for a barbecue afterwards. And that was like, oh my, can I hang out here forever? This is amazing. So I remember that part of it. The sessions, sure, I can place them, but I can picture the small woods backyard and the barbecue and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? What you actually remember. I'm just going to go back to the crash where Crowy brought us down, but actually that wasn't the only crash.
Please do.
Did you bring us down? Remember the Geelong race, Simon, where I ran over you. You crashed, and then I had to jump you, and my chain cut through you. And was that 2002?
That was 02. I wasn't in that race. I had the chicken pox.
Okay. So we can't blame you for that one.
No.
No.
Simon broke both his arms.
I don't know. Yeah,
that's right. You were rooming with Hamish Carter. Didn't he have to look after you in every way?
Yeah, I had to say, fella, you got to come over here. He said, no. I said, come on, man. Don't let me just, I need some help getting my pants back up.
Hey, Hamish, I need an extra hand over here.
I also remember, here's what I remember that was Robbo pronouncing himself out the front in the amazing way he would, and I remember 2 weeks before we had raced, Robbo and I raced head to head, and I remember thinking when he popped his head out again, I was like, oh, let's do this. Like I feel as good as I did 2 weeks ago. And then wheels got touched, and then the next thing I know, I'm on the ground. And then I see you get up, Benno. I see you get up, and I'm thinking, oh, big bro's getting up. I got to get up too. And as I get up, I hear my collarbone go in my ear. I sit back down, and then this gentleman comes running over, and he dumps out recycling like a garbage bag, and I'm just like, what? Whoa! And he runs over and he's like, I gotta sling for you, and I'm like, no, please. And he's trying to wrap me in the garbage, in this discarded garbage bag as a sling, and so I'm watching you guys right off the distance, and I'm fending off this man saying like, no, I think I'm good. I don't need your medical attention. And yeah, there you go. There's our crash.
I remember you went down in front of me, and I had nowhere to go. It was like. And I just thought, I don't want to end up on the road, but if I can get over I'm falling for sure. I'm not going to hold this. And I was like, if I can get to the grass on the side. But to get there, I had to kind of still leapfrog you. And as I tried to leap, the bike didn't really get as high as I'd hoped. And all I did was really lift the front wheel so that the chain went into you and I landed on the grass. But anyway, yeah, that was one of several crashes. Actually, when I retired, I think I'd done about 33 bike crashes by the time I was done. So maybe it was me.
That crash in Centennial Park, I remember you sliding forever. You slid for about 1,000 meters, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to be in trouble here. And you just got up and said, okay, let's go run. And you had to run off the bike. And I was like, oh, awesome, let's go run.
It was one of those awesome crashes where nothing, you have those every now and then. There was a bit of a burn mark, but it wasn't terrible. And then it was just straighten up, the lever, the handlebar lever, the brake lever. And then I was like, okay, yeah, we're good to go. Let's go, guys. That's all good. So, all right, so Balmoral Triathlon Club, you guys were part of it probably from about 93, 94 onwards. That's probably right. Were you guys kind of buddies during that time? Did you train and race together a bit? Any adventures?
We went to, what race did we go to with Neri?
It was Lake Crackenback. It was a trial race for the Formula One series, and
Blue or whatever it was.
We needed to get down there. We decided to do it late. Neither of us had a car. Well, I had a car, but it wasn't working, and I borrowed a mate's car, and we picked up you and your dad. Your dad came with us too, and we drove down. It's like 5-hour drive, and did the race. And it was one of those triple enduros, or it might have been just a normal enduro, not a triple enduro. But we'd been up the front of the race, but when we hit the second swim, we both flew out. We never swum after running. I remember after the race, we were meant to drive. I had a 21st to go to, but you wanted to stay down in Crackenback for the after party. So we took your dad home, and Neri drove. We had a 21st to go to. One of my good friends was having their 21st, and Neri, growing up on a farm, she had a pretty heavy right foot. We were flying home, and every time I turned around, your dad was just, his knuckles were white, just holding on. And we got home in one piece, made the party. But I remember dropping your dad. We dropped him at Strathfield Station, and literally as he got out of the car, the engine conked out and the car stalled and broke down. So I had to push it. We parked it and we just left it and caught a train the rest of the way, Neri and I. And had to come back and get the car the next day.
Why didn't you go with them, Simon? What were you doing? Oh, you wanted to stay for the party.
It was Andrew Johns had made didn't he? Johnsy.
Yeah, Johnsy made it, and Darren Carnell.
Carnell. That's right. There you go. 3 legends of it. So I wanted to be around everything. I wanted to learn more from you, Benno. I was probably just sitting asking questions.
I didn't race it, but I remember being there watching it. I came and watched you guys do that. I remember that. After you guys left Balmoral Tri Club, though, you kind of went. Did you see each other much after that sort of time? Because Simon, you went back to Canada, and Craig, you went French clubs and. everything else. Did you guys ever train much together after those years?
We trained up quite a bit together during those years, because I remember meeting at North Sydney Pool a few times, and we travelled a lot in those early years. Do you remember the race where we were going to Geelong, ironically, same place where you break your arms? And I was sitting there having breakfast, and it was back in the day where you had paper tickets for the plane. I'm just looking through the flight, and I thought we were flying the next day, and I think you did too. And I was like, oh, hang on, that's today's date. So I rang you, and you've looked and you said, oh, yeah, we're flying today. We better get to the airport. And we had like an hour to get there. Of course, Greg, being organised, he'd already flown down the day before. I remember just throwing everything in a bag, rang a cab. When the taxi turned up, I just put my bike on the back seat of the taxi, didn't even pack it in a box. And you did the same. And I lived a bit closer to the airport, so I got there before you did. And I just had my bike in an Allen key, and I went and got one of those Qantas bike boxes and packed it in. And I remember waiting curbside for you to roll in. Your taxi came in, and your bag, it was like your bag had exploded on the back seat. You had clothes everywhere on the back seat of this cab. The cab driver's popped the boot. I've pulled your bike out and packed it into a Qantas box as you're packing all your clothes in, and we made the flight. We did make the flight, but we're probably a little unorganised in those days.
This does not surprise me one bit from the two of you.
This is shocking to me, and anybody who knows me now, they're like, man, you used to be like that, and now you're so organised.
Really?
I can't believe you're so organised.
No. That screen right here, there's like the whole closet's about to fall on my head. Like, what are you talking about? But I'm getting lots of fun. So I made it to the airport, and, here we go.
We made the flight.
Did you guys go to French clubs the same? Were you guys did you ever race in the European stuff together after that?
I think Simon went a bit before me, because his antics in the Iron Tour were legendary when I got over there. So, I was a bit after. Yeah. Going head to head with Lessing and also tripping.
Who taught me to do it was Chapo.
Oh, who else?
I was the first person I'd ever seen talk back to Simon. It just chirped, and Simon was doing his thing, and then Chapo just gave it right back. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's like possible. That's like, that's on the table right now. And so fast forward to Iron Tour, he's doing his thing, because he was awesome. I mean, he was the king, and he's doing his thing. Yeah, the first event that I went head to head with him, I got the better of him. And then the second one, he was chirping away. And then I was like, oh, okay, like, this sounds like we can chirp now. So we had that kind of relationship for a while. But there you go. That's back in the day. The French experience that whole Europe experience was incredible.
I never really did terribly much French race. I was over there in 96, and Darren Carnell was a part of a team, and I joined for a little bit, but I actually joined I raced in Czech for a team over there with Jan Rahula, who was also sort of a part of our little group every now and then. And Jan was actually a little bit after Balmoral Triathlon Club days, I think, but he was in Sydney, and we used to train at Willoughby Leisure Centre for the swimming. Did you guys swim there? Simon, you did. Yeah.
I did a couple of sessions with you boys.
Yeah, with Graham Brewer as the coach.
Paul O'Brien and I still owe you $700 from a rental car and from Grenoble, and after the Emblem race, you rented it. It was under your name, and then Paul and I drove it to L'Alpe d'Huez and couldn't find our accommodation, and ended up backing it up into one of those concrete pillars. And then sleeping outside on our bike boxes underneath the accommodation that we were supposed to be in, and then drove it back. And then when we handed it in, we were like, and I remember however we communicated back then, probably like, I said I owe you $700. So I think,
you know what I was going to do with that $700, by the way? There was a new stock called Amazon, and I was putting it all in that. So let's figure out the difference now.
Oh my God, imagine. Well, Paul O'Brien and I owe you like a lot.
That's awesome. So when you guys look back at your careers, I know I do this, I kind of look back and go, man, it's actually kind of awesome that we got to, I don't know, tick a few boxes along the way. And we all got to have pretty long careers and everything. Do you sometimes both of you, do you like sit back and go, wow, as we reminisce a little bit from the 90s, you know, mid 90s, early 90s stories. And then now you look at your career. Do you guys every now and then just go, that was pretty awesome, and we're pretty privileged to have that experience?
I don't know if I look back and say, well, I certainly miss those days, that part of life where, you know, you're younger and just chasing something and having fun doing it. I do miss that. And then I guess that later part of my career when I travel with Neri and the kids, I miss that. I miss that for sure. And all the people that you used to see regularly, and having a really sort of all-encompassing goal to immerse yourself in, that sort of takes up all your waking thoughts and even your sleeping thoughts. So yeah, I miss that part of life, and the racing too, but mainly the camaraderie with you guys and the people you meet. That's what I miss.
Yeah.
I feel like it happened to somebody else. I think of it as like, I literally see it and I go, oh, look at that guy, he looks like me. That's funny. I wonder what his experience, I wonder what he's doing now. You know, I have such a funny relationship with it in that sense. But Crow, you nailed it. It's the people, you know, like, I know you couldn't go back there and tell yourself like, hey, like, because we were just so immersed in the people and the process and loving it. Like you said, it's just so fun to be so engaged in one thing that you just love to do and you literally think about, you dream about. But I definitely, I found that the hardest part of the transition was throughout. You touched on it, Ben. Like Crow and I we would overlap throughout the year, and every time we saw each other, the three of us see each other, it was like just like in Slovenia. Ben, it's like I just saw you the day before, and was straight back into the sink, and it was amazing. And that's the part. Like all of a sudden, when you're done that part of the sport, you go like, oh, whoa, I don't get to see those people every year. The Chris Mills, the Bevan Dochertys, the Snowies, I don't get to see them I don't get to do the circuit with them. But so, I miss that part, but I really look at it sometimes like it happened to somebody else. So.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. I feel incredibly privileged that I got to have it at all. Like my gratitude of getting to be a professional athlete, I'm kind of like, man, not for a moment do I think, like, don't get me wrong, plenty of highs and lows, and it was a lot of work. But boy, like you said, Crow, it's kind of like that sense of purpose and that real drive to try and achieve something is pretty awesome to have that feeling. And I think we got more in us. We can find other purpose and other drive, and we can hang out with other people, but it is nice to reflect about what we had in the sport of triathlon. If I said to you guys, putting you on the spot, the ultimate high experience, I mean, you guys achieved so much, but was there any one high? And it doesn't even have to be one of your biggest wins. It could be anything. Was there anything that stands out from your careers where you're like, that was one monumental moment that was awesome? I mean, take out meeting me for the first time, obviously, but...
Well, that was monumental when I met you because I was doing it. It was one of my first ever triathlons, and we were racked at Canberra next to each other. And I knew nothing about bikes, so I'd borrowed wheels from the local bike shop, and I'm just pumping. Everyone's pumping their tyres up, so I pumped my tyres up, and I pumped it up too hard and it exploded.
Bang, I remember that.
I'm like, oh, scared
who's that idiot? What's he done?
Scared the living daylights out of everyone. And I was like, oh, didn't think that could happen. I don't know what to do now. And you had a spare tyre that you gave me. And
I think Neil Larkin was there with the pump, wasn't he?
He was. He helped me change
the Balmoral support group. Yeah. Well, also in fairness to you pumping that tyre up, back then it was like if the label said that it could go to 180, we'd pump it to 200, right? It was
exactly.
The more pressure. Now it's completely the other way. It's like
the opposite. Yeah, we used to put 180 in.
Do you think that what it is with, say, all the way back to Balmoral, is that you're around a group of people that speak athlete? Like that's what I notice now is when I'm fun. I went to the track meet last night and I sat with a couple of the Olympic runners, and I was like, oh wow, we all kind of speak athlete, you know, like I feel like I just sat down and we just started speaking athlete. And I think in Balmoral, I can think back to the clubhouse and playing tip footy on the beach there and swimming and running across the thing and the run uphill. But at the end of the day, all those are versions of speaking athlete. Like, hey, you want to go for, that's totally normal. Like, do you want to go for a 90-minute run around the bottom of the, like, Toronto Park Zoo? Yeah, that's normal. Let's do that. Like, you speak athlete too? Yeah, okay, we can go do that. I think that's what really stands out.
I like that speak athlete type thing. It's funny, the company I'm working with now, you know, Any Question, which now, you know, presenting this podcast, it's, I'm on there on the team. Brett Hawke, who also has his own podcast, is now head of launch at Any Question. And then our CEO and founder, Ed Baker, is, incredible Ironman athlete in himself. And it's amazing how you have this athlete mindset. Like, so corporations and business talk about it, but we actually have an athlete mindset. Like, our leaders in the company are all these kind of different types of athlete, and we get it. We dream big. We understand the turning up every day, staying consistent, working hard, but we all have this kind of, I don't know, there's something about it that it's not even just being able to say, oh, that guy's got good running form or whatever. There's a way that you live that's been fascinating to watch for me.
I was at a paddling event in Ontario last week, and a guy came over, just walked into a conversation with the paddle and started talking about the attributes of the paddle. And I chuckled because I was like, oh, this is like athlete speak. Yeah. Like, only a bunch of athletes would stand there and go, oh yeah, like the carbon, what kind of handle is, and the texture, the blade comes out.
Geeking out about it.
Just speaks right into this conversation. The two of us were like, oh, cool. I'll talk about that. I love that paddle. That's cool. Let's talk about it. So I think that's it. And I definitely notice it now. I notice in life, like, I have trouble in the business conversation, people who've had their whole life in just business.
That's got to be learned.
They speak language, and I'm good. I'm like starting to learn language. I'm translating it. I'm trying to be like, oh, do you mean this? Oh, that was wrong. I forget how I said anything. And I love it, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I challenge myself in it. But what I also love to do is go back and find a bunch of people who speak athlete, and I go, hey, like, do you want to toss a ball? Yeah. Like, that's athlete. That's speak athlete.
It's a different language. And, when you speak to people in a business setting or in a corporate setting as well, and you hear about their journey and this didn't work out, so they changed jobs. And, and you think back to an athlete's journey, and a lot of us, there was no plan B, or there was no exit strategy. We were all in on one thing. So
I love that.
I get the sense in the corporate world and in business, just the conversations I've had with people, they always had different, and it's probably smart succession planning or whatever. As an athlete, you're just all in on the one thing. And, I don't think any of us ever gave a second thought to what happens if this doesn't work out. There was, this is what we're doing.
I love
what do
that.
we do next? You can't see the forest for the trees. This is what we're doing. There's no exit strategy. There's no safety net. It's just this.
It's the most alive you can feel. It's that feeling, and I've described it before, and I remember Dallas in 2007, right? And I remember going down, I had to win that, that fifth race or whatever. And I remember going down the bus with everybody and just had this little mantra going, this is not a choice. There's no choice. You only have one way to do it. That's it. There's only one way. And it's the most alive I've ever felt. And the following year in Dallas, it was a bit the same. It's just like, I love that feeling where there is no exit strategy. I like how you said that. No exit strategy. I'm all in. It's the most alive you can ever feel.
Is that perpetual presence, as in, like, you're all in, as in you're thinking just about, you're not even thinking, you're in an intuitive state that is executing on all of this training that has now become intuitive to you. And as much as you may have had a mantra, all of those things were bringing you back to just being, I just going to go do this thing I know how to do. It's intuitive to me. And if you think about it too much, you're done. Like, if your competitor is now thinking about you doing it, they're already done.
That state of flow. I had a mental performance coach on a couple of weeks ago, Seth Pepper, and we were describing, how do you get into a state of flow? How do you make that happen? It's so, and we were using the illustration talking about a big wave surfer, that they have to be in a state of flow or they die. Right, that there is no exit strategy. I'm going to keep using that because I really like it, and I love that. How do you get yourself in a state of flow? Well, when you don't have any other options but to be all in and focus on everything that you can control in that one moment. That's awesome. That's a state of flow.
That's the real stuff.
No, I agree.
King Kamehameha do that. He burned the boats. He sent them to the beach, and then he burned the boats, and he said, I'd like either you go win this fight or you take the island of Maui, or there's no boats left for you. And that's like the most extreme example of it. Sport's just an excuse not to fight, isn't it? So
gladiators in a safe place.
Hey, we make up all this stuff and make all this. So like, hey, we'd really like it if you two stop fighting. So can we do you want to kick a ball around? Do you want to you can hold a bat? We can chuck something at you.
Yeah.
So you stop drawing so much blood.
There was one race I got ready for. I won't mention names because we're all friends with certain people, and their wife had said something and it was really bugged me. I was like, I'm gonna effing destroy this guy. You know, it was like that whole battlefield mentality. And I did. Like, it was like I turned up and I was like, I delivered a performance. It was that, because I was angst. It was like going to war. It was like going to battle. And it wasn't even, he didn't even do anything wrong. It was his wife that pissed me off. So you guys both avoided my question, by the way, just circling back. Was there one high?
What was the question again? One high.
Was there one? I mean, is there anything that stands out?
Croy, you were running down the sideline in the sand at Balmoral, and you passed it out to the wing, and I went around Balmoral and scored. Number one.
Okay, boom. You're avoiding that one. Okay, let's do career low. Anything that you guys look back and go, that was the toughest time. I haven't given you guys any I didn't tell you guys asking you these things. I was just jotted these down before the show.
I mean, how long have we got? There's plenty of those. I mean, I remember watching our good mate Simon win gold in Sydney, and Neri and I were standing in the domain just jumping up and down, so we cannot believe it. And this was with about 300-400 to go.
Yeah.
And, that inspired me to want to go to the Commonwealth Games 2 years later after watching Simon win in Sydney. And, I jumped into the draft legal thing more than I had, because I'd only ever been doing one or two a year. And I made the team. I went up to Mooloolaba, got on the podium, made the Australian team for ITU Worlds, and also made the train-on squad for Com Games, and then came down with the chicken pox, which is the race that you boys were talking about when Simon broke his arms. That was one of the selection races for the Commonwealth Games for Australia, for the Australian team. So I remember just being gutted, because for 18 months, it was the first time really in my career I had a plan. I wanted to go to the Commonwealth Games. It was going to be 18 months. This is what I have to do. And I got right up until the last hurdle. I was on the squad of 6. They were about to pick 3 from a race in Canberra and that race in Geelong where you boys crashed. And I didn't even get on the start line. I got the chicken pox, and just remember thinking, wow, that's 18 months up in smoke. So that was a low point. But, people say it's a cliche. It is part of the journey. I think you need, as you progress through your career and your racing, you develop resilience through different situations, and it's an important part of being able to close out in those clutch moments when you have the opportunity. Having the dark moments before that, I think it develops your mindset and your mentality and your understanding that opportunities don't present all the time, so I've got to be more switched on than ever before. And then 4 years later, I wanted to go to the Commonwealth Games again. It was going to be in Melbourne, so it was going to be a home Com Games, and I'd just come off winning Lifetime Fitness, probably the best win of my career, I think. Got sick again, though, and didn't even make the selection races again. The selection races were in Melbourne, and for the second Commonwealth Games cycle in a row, I didn't even make it to the start line. So, I mean, they're disappointments, but again, I think with the benefit of hindsight, you look back and think, well, it just toughened me up. It toughened me up mentally. You just dust yourself off, get back on the horse and set yourself some new goals. So you don't enjoy those moments when you're going through them, but they're a necessary part of the high moments as well.
Yeah. How about you, Simon?
The highlight, or the most impact, it's not the highlight, but the most impactful thing was also at the same event. So 2012 London, the walking into the opening ceremonies, carrying the flag, impacted me profoundly. I think it made it it's the most I'd ever, I don't know, it had ramifications that went way, way beyond sport, and for my own just personal journey of really what it meant to carry a flag, to what does nationalism mean? What is all of that, to be so confronted with it in this moment where you're supposed to be this kind of like, I'm the flag bearer, like I'm clearing the thing and I'm supposed to represent whatever this ideal is. And then wasn't lost on me, like later thinking about, what does that mean? And is this what divides us? Like, am I that whole piece in that of saying, like, I'm Canadian and we're like this and you're like that. And I did struggle with that. I still struggle with that now. And I think also just on a biological level, like chemically, that amount of dopamine to walk in and like experience this, all these people in a stadium and all these people at home and all that comes with it. And then the next day I have to get up and go, like, your brain's going like, okay, cool, let's go. We're going to do that again today, right? Like, we're going walking into team. You're like, no, sorry, we just got to go to the pool and like do some laps, and then we're going to go scout the course, and then we're going to go lay in our room for quite a while. And your brain's going like, yeah, that's neat and all, but like, I want all that dopamine back. So that impacted me profoundly. And then there's some just human relationship stuff that happened there. There's no need to go into the specifics of it, but the ramifications of that took years. You know, there was some controversy there, and I didn't necessarily go about it in the best manner in 2020 hindsight. And those ramifications, you know, only just recently got resolved and have like come around. So yeah. So what are my two most impactful? They are like these, the carrying that flag and then the consequences of it.
Yeah, I like that answer. It's kind of like, it's not always the obvious thing, you know, it's like, and then it affects you more deeply probably than you would have ever expected. Like it's meant to be a tremendous honor and everything that goes with it. And then you're starting to go, well, hang on, what does all this mean? I like that.
Also, how many people were to go from your pedestal, right? Because the other side of adulation is isolation. Like we don't really see that. You get all this adulation and you're like, oh, thank you so much. But like also, you're all going to leave, and then I'm just standing here by myself. And so when I came home from London, that's very much the experience. That experience was like, oh, I was carrying the flag, but now all y'all are mad at me. Like now I didn't do this thing right, and you got this story and you heard this other thing, and you're telling me, like you have the opportunity now to come tell me. So I'm literally at the pool, or I'm at the lake, or I'm down at the coffee shop, and someone comes up and either tells me, I love what you did, da, 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 and I'm going like, I want to just move on from that. Or they're like, I can't believe you did that. That's my like cousin, and you're such an asshole. And you're like, uh-oh, can I just go hide under a rock? Because like you're telling me I'm the greatest and you're telling me I'm the worst. And I just want to go kick a ball around now because I'm speak athlete again. I don't want to talk about this anymore. So yeah, there you go.
Well, I still think one of my highs was seriously being in the stands watching you win that 2000 Olympic gold. I know I don't mean to embarrass you, but when I reflect back, yes, you win races and things and there's special moments, but to see one of your mates do something at that time, it was the first time I've ever been in the Olympics. It was the first weekend. We had the women the day before and then the men. And then I was there as first reserve. So I'd had my whole down period before it. Like for me, probably my lowest point is leading into one of my highest points. So opposite to you in the sense that I had that whole court case with Triathlon Australia and everything about being left off the Australian team and blah, blah, blah. And I was really bitter and bewildered. And then you offered me to come and, you know, train with you in Victoria, Canada, which was almost like a lifesaver, you know, putting you out your arm and grabbing me because I was in a pretty dark place. I was about to give the whole sport away and I was miserable. And then suddenly I'm in Victoria, Canada, training with a really fun group of young people and just loved it. Fell back in love with the sport because I'd become a bit bitter with it. Then I meet Laura in Victoria, Canada. And, you know, we basically never date. We basically just fall in love and that was it. It was like instant. You know, and she's still with me 22 years later, which is kind of amazing. And then one of your very best mates goes and wins the Olympic gold. So it was like this really low point into just this accelerated me for the next phase almost. It was like this, you know. So anyway, that for me, 2000 is a very fond memory year. And I know sometimes you get tired of talking about it, Simon, but for me, I enjoy talking about it. So we don't. So screw you.
It's funny is because we have this camaraderie that goes forward from there. So when I'm, you know, Crowy, you're reflecting on watching Sydney and then I'm thinking like, oh yeah, but then I get to watch you go to Hawaii, and Benno, I get to watch you do that run of 5. And it felt so much like I was like, oh my gosh, our team has done so well. You know, it was just so fun to be.
Yeah, we did have a good little team going on. It was good. As athletes in individual sports, I think that's what you miss, you know, and that's what I think Balmoral gave us. And even though the geography might have changed and it might have been in Boulder or Victoria or anywhere around the world, we still had that teammate camaraderie. And that was so. I think Sydney was special because that's where we met. It's where we trained. I mean, we did a lot of our sessions just down the road from where Simon won his medal. And I also remember actually in the crowd with 250,000 other people, Neri and I bumped into Jace Harper as well. Remember Jason Harper? And he was like, oh yeah, Simon's got this one. And everyone was jumping around. It was such a great memory.
I remember being in the stands as the reserve for the Australian team, holding a little Canadian flag, jumping up and down, and just tears running down the face with the final 400 meters.
That's where friendship trumps nationalism.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
yeah.
Back to your story about the flag, Simon. And I mean, I can't believe anyone would ever be mad at you because you have nothing but good intentions with everything you do. So,
thanks. You take me back to actually another person. There's a name from but one of my favorite photos is Courtney Atkinson and I, and in the closing ceremonies and he's got his Aussie kit and I got my Canadian kit, and just like these two mates, just like, look where we are. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, here we are. And he's, gosh, what a legend he is. And so, yeah, you're right. It is those friendships that trump all those.
All right. So guys, if we had to, I mean, this is kind of a bit of a lazy question too, but I do like it. What would you tell your 17-year-old self now after going through everything you've been through? Is there anything that jumps out at you going, geez, if I was 17, if I'd just known.
I would tell him to do a finance and accounting degree.
Isn't that what you started? I thought you started
a history degree.
History? Did you really?
History. I bump into Chris McCormick in the courtyard of University of New South Wales, and he's doing his business degree, and I'm like pondering, what happened to Xanthium and back in whatever, and I would have done and finished a finance and accounting degree.
So you wouldn't have been an athlete? You would have...
No, I mean, sorry, I would have done that at the same time. So
for post-career.
For post-career. Then again, everything's so dated by the time we retired, guys, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. Well, I got my physio degree and I was going to be a physio, and then the triathlon thing started working out all right. And towards the end of my career, I thought maybe I could go back to physio, but I graduated 25 years ago, and I've got a mate he owns a few practices around, about 5 physio practices, and I said, maybe I should come in and do a few days. He's like, when did you graduate? And I said, 97. He said, 97? I don't know if I've got anything for you to do. Oh, do you know how to make coffee? That's what he said to me. I don't know if anyone would trust me treating them, but to answer your question, what would I say to my 17-year-old self? I had a little soccer career before I was a triathlete, and I played right up until I was 20 years of age. But the serious part of my career stopped when I was about 15 or 16, and I always regretted, as soon as it got hard, giving up. I didn't have enough, I guess, good role models around me or whatever to say, no, this is what's meant to happen. Like, I missed a team, and I thought, that's the end. The great players, Maradona, the professionals, they never miss a team, so my career must be over, and it sort of petered out after that. So when I started in triathlon, the only goal I had was just to be a bit tougher, not to roll over and play dead soon as the going gets tough. So, and I think I did that in my triathlon career based on what had happened earlier in my life. So, yeah, I don't think I would go back and tell my 17-year-old self anything, because that's what I told myself at the time, just be a bit tougher. Yeah. When the going gets tough, just be a bit tougher.
It's funny, I have so many things I would say to myself. I'm like, I think for me, I struggle with confidence. I didn't know how to finish off a race. And it took me from 17 probably until really 2006, where I started really, even though if I had some good success before that, it was because of consistency, not because of winning. And I think that winning wasn't there because I wasn't confident enough in myself. I was just focused on the hard work. I loved the hard work. I think the three of us all loved the hard work. In fact, I loved it so much, I'm sure I overdid it most of my career. But I think had I been a bit more confident, I wouldn't have overdone it too much, and I would have focused on, I think, Simon, you were very good at focusing on the details. I don't know that I did. I think I was a bull at a gate. And you...
I joked that I would do the accounting thing because it's kind of my standard answer. And it's true, I would do that. But I would also, it would be, what's the adage? It's like, it's the people. It's like, I definitely, part of sport and competition is the triumph and what sacrifices are you willing to make. And I think I blurred at times that it didn't matter so much. It wasn't about, it was about winning. It was about accomplishing. It was about sacrificing. And at times lost sight of actually it's the people, it's the experience and the people that matter here. And yeah, so if you could, I mean, you can't, and that's the journey. But for now, going forward, I really try and come back to, I'm always trying to bring myself back to, like, it's the people.
When you guys look at the sport now, you've both been around it for 30 years. How's it changed, both, good and bad, I guess? Is there any things that stick out and you go, oh, that was good, that was bad?
We're so fast now.
I just think that the development...
It's all in the shoes, though. It's fast because of the level. Just kidding.
Well, look, that's part of it. The technology's come in, but I just think, look, when we started, people came into the sport usually in their early 20s from other sports. Whereas at some point or another, I want to say it was probably Javier, Alistair, their generation, they got groomed and identified a lot earlier, fell into great coaching structures, got really good technical advice all through their teen years. And then when the hard work gets laid on later, they had the great techniques, the great fitness. They were checking all of the boxes. And I just have, I have a theory that every generation just gets a little better than the generation before. I think we learn a little more. The coaching gets better. 25, 30 years ago, triathlon was a sport that drew a lot of theory and knowledge from the three individual disciplines of swimming, cycling and running, whereas now it's its own sport. I know certainly in Australia, I've seen my daughter, she went to all schools, so triathlon it's a school sport now, and it's also a college sport where you can get a full ride scholarship. I just think the development, the knowledge, the technology, and the athletes, I think it's just across the board we're getting better as a sport, and it's really nice to see. And there's no question I think that technology plays a part, but I mean that happens in all areas of life. People come up with smarter ideas and better ways of doing things, and you have to decipher what's really real and meaningful and impactful and what's just a gimmick or fluff. And I think we're at a really exciting time in our sport where the performances are just out of this world. Watching some of these athletes, the way they swim, bike and run, it's exciting and awe-inspiring.
Yeah, you were in St. George, right? You just saw them race there, the World Championships, the Ironman Championships. And just how fast. It's like they don't get tired. It's amazing.
Mate, they're training. And interestingly, there's all the hype and the buzz around the Norwegians, and one of their coaches used to race Ironman. I raced him a couple of times. Their other coach I got to chat to in Utah, and, I just think they have a really smart approach. I don't think there's they use the science and the theory. They also use a lot of intuition. But they have access to a lot of things too, like testing the way they feel during an Ironman, which is something like back in the day you had to you experimented with, and there's a lot of trial and error. They have a lot more certainty around the way they do things, and they're just utilising a lot of technology. They're just smart. They're just smart. They're ahead of the curve. And when I chatted to Alexander, Christian's coach, just for half an hour, you just walk away thinking, there's no surprise at why they're doing so well. And they scouted Christian and Gustav when they were really young, and it's been a long journey. People like you talked about, it wasn't until 06, so you're a bit older then, but you started nailing a few performances because you were putting all the pieces together with your confidence. You were matching that up with your physical ability. And I just think it takes a while to get world class in something. And, I know Christian and Gustav, I think they were scouted or brought on board their program when they were 12 or 13 years of age.
Over 10 years ago now. They've been going at it. Yeah. Everybody forgets the years and years. They're like, oh, you've just come here. It's like, well, I've been working for a long time. What about you, Simon? What have you seen, mate?
I think there's just so much opportunity now. There's, do you want to race long course? Do you want to race Ironman? Do you want to race Arena Games? Do you want to race PTO Opens? Do you want to go on the World Cup journey? Do you want to stay and just race in Japan? Like there's this incredible opportunity for athletes to go all down, whatever suits their journey, whatever they want to do. And then with the Norwegian thing, that it's this all in mentality, but part of that all in too is they seem so genuine in their desire to see, I don't know, they've just transcended that like binary win-loss. They are in this to see how they can perform. And if it results in a win, then that's great. And if it doesn't, that means somebody else did the process and applied themselves and was all in a different way. And then they just celebrate that as like, like thank you for pushing this further forward. What can we learn from you? Because we want to push it forward next. And that transcendence of that, such a binary outcome, I think is very apparent. And just when you watch the videos with them interacting, and they might say some things about winning, but I actually think that they're more just talking about performance.
I think a lot of the top performers have that though. The winning is a byproduct. It's the process that the people are immersed in and obsessed with. No question though. You know, when you're in the business of sport, that's a bottom line business. Win losses, that's how you get judged and that's how you get rewarded and whatever. But you know, I know you guys were like that. You guys were about performance, and that, you know, a byproduct of performing well would be the result. I see that with the Norwegians, maybe to a heightened level, but I've seen it throughout the course of the history of our sport as well. The top performers were just driven to push the envelope, their own envelope, and maybe push the sports envelope a little further as well.
I look at the 90s, we're all about one thing, just working harder. Who trains the hardest? It's like that mentality was still dragged on from the 100 years previous. And then I feel like it started to become more holistic, looking at your nutrition, your sleep and your recovery, your physiology, you know, how you train. Like you're saying, the Norwegians have taken that all a bit further. But I really feel like that started happening really seriously about 15 years ago, where people started using sports psychs. You know, like we'd never see a sports psychologist in the 90s. That would have been like, you're a wimp. You know, it was that whole mentality of, you know, harder, stronger. Whereas I feel like now, if you talk to an elite athlete like a Christian or a Jan Frodeno or whatever, they have this team where they're surrounded by people that have this, helping them have this holistic approach to performance. And so they have this better life outside of the sport, so they have a better performance in it.
The mind-body connection is strong. So yeah. I remember, I do remember in the 90s, I think it was the 90s or early 2000s, coming across a sport psychologist. And yeah, some of the things she told me that day, I used every day of my career and my life from then till now. And I wondered why they just weren't as accessible. Mate, yeah, I guess the more of a mindset around that holistic approach now. But yeah, you're right though. I mean, even speaking to Christian's coach in Utah, so when he started the race that day, he'd been sick. And obviously Gustav got sick as well and he pulled out, and they were just testing their bloods. And the way he was telling me, it was just part of their daily routine. Oh yeah, Gustav, he's not ready to race. Christian, he's not 100%, but he was past the point of where it would be dangerous to race. He's now hurt. And it's like, wow, these guys are so...
It's not guesswork or hoping. There's no hoping. They know. They know through looking at the data. They know the performance is there. It really is incredible. Do you guys think, you know, watching Christian, you know, do that whole sub-7, sub-8 thing, which I love all of that for the sport. I just think it's really awesome that, and Macca, who we all know, you know, he's gone and put on these events and and only Macca could do this, right? Like he's doing such a great job at trying to, whether it be the Super League or this kind of stuff, and I just love it. But do you guys think then, because they've now done that with teams and everything else, that it starts to become a little bit like you were just talking about, that mental, removing a barrier? Do you think that starts to go, they're actually possible to do that without a team around them? Or do you think that bike that they did, a 316, you just have to have a team?
I don't know. I mean, I love that. I love the sub-7, sub-8. It was cool. It was very cool. I heard on the broadcast, I think they said a lot of it was Alistair's idea, wanting to just see what was possible.
Oh, is that right?
And also, he was also the driving force behind. I think there was maybe a bit of talk about bringing in other triathletes as pacers, and he was like, no, let's bring in Pro Tour cyclists. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a possibility if they do it again. Hopefully they'll do it again next year to go quicker, because I mean, you know, that team of cyclists that Alistair had put together, that team went 8 minutes quicker than Christian's team. So
Joe Skipper was incredible, because Lawson, the whole thing is like,
Joe Skipper was insanely awesome. Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah,
just
with a couple of weeks notification or whatever, and
not even that long.
1 week was it?
Oh, look at those 12 minutes. Like the guy is right there, put into the deep end like he was. Just so much respect for that. And then watching what he's done elsewhere, obviously, it's not totally out of the blue. And just I saw his demeanor at Collins Cup, and it was really impressive. He's just
he's a monster. He's a monster. I think he's an awesome guy to watch.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
I thought all four. I mean, Katrina Matthews, like you said, and then Nicholas Spierig. When you're talking greatest of all time, she has to be a part of the conversation. I know
She's
for Ironman people, they're probably like, who, what? It's like, in terms of longevity.
She did an Ironman. She did an Ironman and she won it. And if she could be bothered doing more, she would have won more.
She would do it if she wanted to do more, yeah. But otherwise, she turns up and does this Ironman to basically finish out her career. Surely she's going to be done soon. I mean, I remember seeing her at 98 World Champs in Lausanne.
What a beautiful runner she was. She ran so amazing in that challenge, sub 7, sub 8 challenge. She looks amazing when she runs.
She's incredible. There's no biomechanically absolutely perfect. I mean, you know, her career is Olympic gold, Olympic silver, the same as you, Simon. You know, and she's 5 Olympics. What has she done? How many? Or 6 Olympics? Yeah. No.
I like seeing the evolution of it to watch Kat come along. And was she a Army captain?
Mm-hmm.
She's
Army captain.
That's what it takes. Is like you've got this Army captain comes along and applies herself to, you know, this triathlon sport and goes and does what she does, and it's kind of like the arrival of the next gen of like, it's constant. Here's the bar again.
It really is fun to watch. What about, I mean, I did briefly mention, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. If we said, is there one greatest of all time triathlete that we want to throw in there, or do you guys, we've been around long enough, we should be allowed to have a say.
Well, I want to say, I'll throw out McKeely. I think McKeely covers, for me, consistency, longevity, versatility. I mean, she won a world title, Xterra world title. She just decided to go and get a mountain bike and go to Maui and won an Xterra world title. She won Chicago 8 times. And I mean, if you go back
Alcatraz
to the 90s.
8 times, I think, or 10 times at Alcatraz.
St. Anthony's 10 times. And they were back in the days where you guys raced on that circuit. I mean, McKeely was racing Carol Montgomery, Emma Carney, Jackie Gallagher at those races. So to win Chicago 8 times against that caliber of athlete, I mean, her consistency.
How many times did you win Chicago, Crowe?
2.
Oh, I got 2 too.
How about you?
2 as well, yeah. Simon?
Never been to Chicago. I'm just not true. I've been to Chicago.
I'm just teasing. I'll give you a hard time. It's like I have nothing on you.
I'm backing that up. I give you the OG. Yeah, McKeely Jones, the OG.
I think I like McKeely. I'm trying to think if I can throw anybody. Daniela Riff and what she's doing is quite impressive in terms of, you know, more recently, and you know, these
her prolific winning is incredible.
5 Ironman world titles and 5 70.3 world titles.
It's a redundant. It's a hard question.
No, it's a fun conversation. We're not going to get it right.
It's a fun conversation.
It's like there's no right answer, obviously.
I mean, you know, Mark and that generation, they didn't have the Olympics.
Yeah. I
look at McKeely because I think, well, she won ITU world titles at drafting and non-drafting. The current generation don't have the opportunity to do that. So there were opportunities that every generation had that maybe subsequent generations or previous didn't have that opportunity. So it's very hard. But Danny's record and not finished is incredible.
Flora Duffy. I've got to throw Flora in this conversation. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Olympic gold. She has 10 world titles across different, you know.
I hope she races the Collins Cup this year, and I want to see her do a 70.3 because I think she'll just be incredible across all distances.
Oh, yeah, she doesn't have a weakness. She's a weapon across the board. All right, men, we're going to touch it, guys? Take you two out of it.
Well, I was throwing women and men in together.
Okay. So fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so we're done. We're not going to pick a man then. We're just going to say one greatest.
Jan, maybe Jan Mark.
Jan Mark. Jan Mark, Alistair, Hyvee.
Alistair.
Yeah.
Well, you got to qualify it with a maybe. I don't think there's a definite answer.
Oh, you're right. Fair. It's just so funny that with his, like, you're absolutely true. And also his just, I don't know, the way he approached it, the way Alistair, those are my 2 to see. I mean, Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you described 2 legends of it. They can battle it out.
Calling out a bunch of our mates.
No, that's good.
You know, I do have a spreadsheet somewhere, which I stopped doing about 10 years ago, which has the top 50 ranked. Did I tell you that? Do you guys know about that spreadsheet?
Oh, you did tell me about your spreadsheet, yeah.
And I would divide it up into swim, bike, run would each get their column, you know, so 15% to swimming, 15 to bike, 15 to running. And then I can't remember all the columns I had, but it added up to 100% obviously. And I looked at things like longevity, titles. I probably added one in there, prize money and bits and pieces. But
that's probably the most cognitive and thoughtful way anyone's ever broken it down.
Yeah, I do. I have to dig it up somewhere. We can go through it. And I think at the time, so it must have been 2016, 17, I wrapped it up. I think I still had Mark Allen for the men. And then the women, I did have McKeely at the top because I did the 2 charts. And I did have Mark Allen just in front of Jan Frodeno. But I think Jan's gone on to do a bit more since.
Yeah.
And I did have Alistair behind there, and he's done a little bit more since. And Hyvee, you guys were both top 10. I couldn't tell you where, which is a pretty awesome list. When you go down to 50 and you're looking at pretty amazing guys at 50 and you go, oh, actually, that is pretty cool.
That's a cool list. I really hope Jan is healthy and races in Kona again this year. I texted
him this week, actually, and
I miss him racing there. He's something to watch there.
Just a quick mini break to remind you to go check out Any Question. That's Any Question on iOS or Android. And you can also go to the web, anyquestion.com. You can check out anyquestion.com/Crowy Alexander. Go check it out. Ask him questions there. Guys, mate, this has been awesome just to catch up. What else do we want to talk about before I let you go? Because I know if I don't keep you on the line, I never get to talk to you again because everybody gets busy suddenly. Okay, do you want to finish with some rapid fire questions before I let you go?
Yeah, why not?
All right, you can alternate. All right, here we go. Number 1, Crow, you can start. Best and worst subject at school?
Best subject, maths. Worst subject, I don't know, history, music. One of the languages, maybe.
A whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Simon, best and worst subject at school?
I mean, my best would be history, English, and worst would be math. So
you're an enigma, though. Nearly every athlete I know is reasonable at math and struggled with the histories and the English.
You are an enigma.
Yeah. All right, number 2, Simon, you're going to lead off. What are you currently reading or watching?
Oh, geez.
A good book.
The good book. What do I have right here? I have Teddy Chang's Stories of Your Life and Others. Ted Chang. It's fantastic.
Cool. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. And what was the other question? The movie?
You could do a movie.
I just watched The Illusionist with Edward Norton. And that was
show.
Oh, my goodness. That was fantastic.
Crowy?
So,
I'm watching Ted Lasso with Neri at the moment, the world's best sports coach, and reading Harry Potter with my daughter.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I don't even know if I've got... the best book of the last 6 months is probably for me, Shoe Dog. I really enjoy that Phil Knight book. Have you guys read that, Nike?
No.
That's kind of a cool one to go check out. Anyway, first car you own, Crowy?
Toyota Corolla, 1984.
Oh, mine was a
model.
Toyota Corolla 1974. The Grog Bob.
Renault Fuego. Bought it for $500. Didn't start in first. I had to start in second or roll it down the backwards down the hill.
That was what I had to do with mine. Remember,
The old hill start.
Do you remember the Grog Bog, Simon? I used to pick you up in the morning and take you swimming.
I arrived at that race. So I took the train. I rode my bike in the dark, and then I got a flat tire, and then I got to the hotel, and then the next morning I was like, oh, I don't know how to get to the race. Like, I got a flat tire on a disc wheel. How am I going to replace this? Figured all that out, got to that race, and then you gave me a lift home in the Grog Bog.
Yeah. And for the next 3 or 4 years, I picked you up every single morning. Go training.
Actually, I've got just hearing Simon tell that story, I've got another story. That race where we nearly missed our flights. I don't know if you remember, Simon, when we flew to Melbourne, we had to get to Geelong and we hadn't organised anything. So we jumped on a bus and it dropped us in Melbourne City, not Geelong. And then we were walking around Melbourne holding our Qantas bike boxes, and we had to carry them so far we hurt our necks and shoulders. We could hardly swim in the race on the weekend, dragging our bike boxes around Melbourne for 3 hours, working out how we were going to get to Geelong.
I love it.
Oh, that travel is just, I was at the kids race on the weekend in Ontario. Barry Shepley put it on, and this kid said, what's the best part? Why should I keep doing this? His mom was kind of in on the conversation, and he said, well, why should I keep doing this? And I said, the travel. I said, I've been to Japan 12 times.
Yeah.
that I've been to Australia 30 times. Like, it's the travel, man. Like,
the travel is good. Although I don't want to do it as much anymore. I kind of feel you do get it out of your system.
That is the definition of luxury, though, isn't it? It's
You say that. I think I raced Ishigaki Jima 11 times, that World Cup alone. And then Gamagori, Yokohama.
Conrad Stoltz doing Japanese karaoke.
Well, Ishigaki, Japanese karaoke, is the reason I have no voice. 2005. 2005, Ishigaki.
Yeah, there you go.
Lucy had just been born. So a few of us went to a karaoke bar. We had a little wedding of the head. The guy who owned the bar just tossed us the keys at midnight and he left. We were there for about 12 hours. And that was the start of my voice problems. I had an operation in 2006 to cut some nodules off. I still lose my voice to this day because of Ishigaki karaoke bar.
That race was a very special race, Ishigaki Jima. Well, guys, I'm not going to keep you all day because, Crowy, I know you've got things to do. It's a Saturday morning in Australia. You've done really well, mate. Your voice actually sounded. You actually did pretty good, mate. It started a bit rusty, but you actually came good. So thanks for making the effort, buddy, because I know that couldn't have been easy. Simon, mate, I know you've got things you want to be doing on a Friday afternoon in Vic.
Good to see you. Nope. The time, fellas. This is the best thing that ever happened.
I know. Well, I really want to do this in person. For everybody listening, you'll have to excuse just three old men having a good time reminiscing about some great stories and good times. Next time we'll do it with a couple of beers. Crowy's got his glasses on and all of our eyesight's going. But guys, this was truly, really a thrill. I'm so glad we got to do this. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for joining me. It was fantastic. For everyone listening, you can find all the show notes and timestamps, coupon codes and everything at bennettendurance.com/media.
Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Patreon page or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.